some of the sectioning. First of all, what we've got is we've got a panel that comes from the center and works itself lower on this side, okay? This is where we're going to place our first piece of graduation coming onto our longer side. After this, we're going to work this into what we consider to be a triangle graduation. So it's going to be a very classic graduated bob coming longer on this side. What we've then done is we've subdivided the second side. And what this does is it connects with the first piece, so our first piece of graduation on this side. And we're going to actually have this side as our shorter side. So it's going to come short and it's going to connect into the longer. And what's going to happen is this is technically from us is going to be a nice round graduation that's going to then flow and connect into a nice triangle graduation. So we have two classic techniques here today. We have a triangle graduation and we have a round graduation. And then we're going to connect it with a fringe on top. Okay, so the front is going to be disconnected here, but the rest of the haircut's going to be blended. So I hope you guys like it, and let's get started. So first thing we've done is we've popped in a bit of the leave-in conditioner from Milkshake, and what we've done is we've spritzed it everywhere, but we're using this as a primer to start helping us cut. So guys, let us know where you're tuning in from, let us know what time it is, how you're doing today, what you're up to. Drop a comment in the comment box, don't forget to like and share. So what we're doing is we're starting the first side of our classic triangle graduation. Now the most important thing here is the first section. Now this first section is what's going to give us our weight line. So it's what's going to create the weight that we see within the haircut. So this is going to be very important for us to understand the kind of weight, how heavy or how flat it's going to end up being. All right. So what's going to happen is when we take this first section, depending on how much we pull away from the head, it will end up being heavier. The closer our fingers are to the head, the shorter it's going to end up being. So this is the most important section, is really understanding where you want the weight to be within this first section. So the best thing to do is to look from the side so that you can see the face and decide for yourself how heavy or how flat you want to create your graduation. You can always go in this first section, I believe, a little bit longer than you think. It's much safer. So rather do the first section 2-3 times, however many times you need to get it perfect, than going too short and not really having a way back. So what I would do is I would do that first section, stand from the side, and see where the weight sits and whether you're happy with the way that weight looks. Now, I'm happy with it, I just think it needs to come a tiny bit shorter. So it's always good to go a little bit slow with that first section, just to make sure you're getting it where you want the weight to be. So for those of you that are just tuning in, this is an asymmetric bob. It's going to have technically a round graduation on one side and a triangular graduation on the other. It's part of our abstract series, which is more of a contemporary classic. So the first section I've cut is a little triangular section in the center of the back, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking pivoting sections from that center point. So what that means is I'm working around the head at the moment, and I'm just taking some really nice triangle sections. So triangle sections working all the way through from the point in the middle. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you see okay? How are you guys doing today? Drop us a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing here is, if you can see that this first section is nothing to cut. Now this is because I'm taking a pivoting section from the top, which means there's no hair to cut from the first section. It means my guideline is stationary. If you take hair and you see hair at the top, it means that you're changing your guideline and your guideline is traveling. So whenever we do pivoting, we're looking for a stationary guide, which means we don't put hair back into that first section. Okay? So the other important thing to think about when you're doing these pivoting sections is how much you're pulling the hair up towards the ear or down towards the first center section. So the more you pull the hair up, the more we pull this hair up towards the ear, the shorter the haircut's going to be. So what I mean by this, if I lift my fingers up high, what's going to happen is it's going to end up being shorter. The more I pull my fingers back towards the center, the longer it's going to end up being. So depending where you want the front to sit, you have to think the higher you pull your fingers, the shorter it ends up in the front. The lower you pull your fingers towards the middle of the back, the longer it's going to be. So do you want to pull everything up to make it shorter, or do you want to pull everything more back to make it longer? The choice is yours.
So have your first question for tonight.
Yes.
From Branimir. Hello, do you set guide for inclination line?
What do you mean by inclination line? I'm afraid I haven't heard that terminology before. If you can just drop us a comment what you mean by the inclination line, please. I think this is one of the hard things when it comes, everyone kind of has a slightly different language. And so that's why at Slate we really like to try and keep it as simple as possible. So for me, what I'm doing is I'm still pivoting round from that first section. And we can see that the safest thing to do here, once you start getting close to the corner, is when you do triangle graduation, this bit behind the ear is normally the shortest point. And so you really have to be careful not to go too short behind the ear. That's why I normally like to start from this point, from the side, so I can really decide where it's going to fall on the head shape as well. So once I've started with that, which is going to be the shortest point, I can then work my way to the middle. Again, you can see that there's no hair to take in from the guideline as well. So it's very important we have a very clean and clear guideline from the beginning.
Ben Brown is online watching us.
Hey Ben.
Giving his love to you.
Thanks Ben, thanks for tuning in, buddy. So Ben's an amazing educator. Really, really lucky to say he's a mate as well. So thanks for tuning in, man. So what we've got is we're going to start again from the corner behind the ear, because for me that's the danger point. If I make this point too short, what I'm going to end up is I'm going to have a very big hole to deal with later. So by making sure that the length behind the ear is the length I want, it's going to save me afterwards when I want to refine my outlines. So this will make more sense as we go through and as you see the rest of the haircut forming. So what we've done is we've just finished that first section in the back for those of you that are just tuning in. So this is going to be a triangular graduation on the one side, coming into a round graduation on the other. So it's going to have a very much of an asymmetric look when we're finished. We've just done our first section, which is essentially a triangular graduated bob first section. So what this is we've taken a section which we pivoted from the center from a triangle, and we've worked our fingers round from the center point, from the pivot, and we've worked from vertical into horizontal, making sure that we're saving the length we want behind the ears. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a very light cross-check of this, and then we're going to move on to the next sections.
So Branimir dropped a comment what he meant.
Yeah.
It's the line between internal weight and external graduation.
So what was the first question again?
Sorry, give me a second. Do you set guide for inclination line?
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work through at the same time both my internal and external lengths. So I'm really building the graduation exactly where I want it to be. What I mean by this is I'm thinking about both the weight line that's going to be formed and the external lengths that are coming in. Cool, so I'm just going to want to quickly explain what I've done there as I've cross-checked, because normally what we'll do when we cross-check this, I would cross-check the center first. But what I've done here is I've simply taken sections which come diagonal, lift the hair up, and I'm looking to make sure there's no bulk, there's no weight, there's nothing that sticks out from left to right. So it's just pulling across and just making sure that when we pull our hair, there's no bulk. So it's very much just flowing from left to right. And we've got some lovely little graduation that's starting to build here. Now, what you can see is we're going to move on to our next section. Our next section is this panel here, which comes across and comes to just behind the ear. And this is actually going to be worked through in two sections. So what we did was we went from vertical and we pivoted towards horizontal. We cross-checked this graduated area first, and now we're going to move on to this next section. The next section is going to be worked through with horizontal sections. Now again, from my experience, what I've seen a lot is when people start, sorry, I'm just going to put in a little bit more of the milkshake leave-in conditioner. So where I've seen a lot of people make mistakes with this is I find that when they start from the center at the back and they work their way across, sometimes they lift up the hair and it ends up too high, and then it ends up too short in the front. And so what I believe is, instead of starting at the back, I like to start from behind the ear. This is really my secret to doing this that I've found best. So that when I start from behind the ear, I can really see the length that I'm creating and make sure I'm long enough. Okay? So again, sometimes if you start from the back and you come forward, your elevation is too high and you end up too short. So to conquer this, what I do is I actually start from the danger zone. I start from behind the ear, making sure it's the length that I want to see straight away from the beginning. I'll work my way from behind the ear back to the middle. Okay, and then if you want, you can always have a little cross check by working your way from the center back towards behind the ear, just to make sure it's really nice and smooth. And we can start to see it building now. So I'll do the same for the next section. And again, I'll start on the danger zone. I'll be working my way from behind the ear, because that's the danger part. And I'll be working my way towards the center back.
So have Cindy from Long Island, New York, Kim from Northern Ireland. Oh, have a comment for your hair.
Oh,
Love your hair, 100% curls.
thank you.
From Indiana, Chester, Dorset.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it. Big love to the hairbrain community as always. So I just want to go through what I've done there. So I've worked from my underneath section from vertical to horizontal, and then these next two sections I worked them horizontally. I worked from the ear towards the back by making sure I maintain the length behind the ear, because it's very critical, because we can see it becomes the shortest point of our haircut here as well. You can then cross-check, so you can just take vertical sections and just make sure that from top to bottom there's a nice clean cutting angle. So because I cut everything horizontally, what I'm doing is I'm coming over vertically and I'm cross-checking the haircut vertically now. And this is just the refinement. You can see I'm really cutting minimal here, absolutely minimal.
So, what size are your scissors?
My scissors are a 4.5. So I like really small scissors because I feel like I get more precision when I work. And it's a very personal thing, but I always think when you think about precision, always the smaller, sharper tools are the better ones. So what I'm going to do is, before I start working on the front of this triangle graduation, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working this section first. Now this is a secret that we have at Slate. A lot of people will work through this in one go, and the problem is when you start elevating this section, it's very hard to see the length that you're going to end up with at the front. So I think the thing that most hairdressers are scared of, certainly I was very scared, was that you're going to get the length wrong in the front. And so we have a little secret to how we work through that front area to make sure we're getting the length that me and the client decides is right. So first we're going to work it how we've already worked our other sections, which means we're going to work from behind the ear first towards the center back, and then we're going to work through the front afterwards, and I'll show you my little secret to that in a second. So let me know if you're following along, guys. Let me know if this makes sense. Really cool asymmetric bob we're doing. The one side's going to be this longer A-line triangle graduation. The other side's going to be this shorter rounded graduation. It's all going to blend in the back and be disconnected in the front. It's a really, really cool, fun commercial haircut, something you can do in the salon for those slightly more adventurous clients. We've been going through some of our abstract, which is our salon creative course, on the last few Hairbrain Lives. So those of you that have followed the last few we've done, you'll have seen that we've gone through a couple of our different abstract haircuts we offer within those courses. So now it's starting to kind of take shape. We can see that this is becoming a heavier graduation as we work towards the front. Now, what we're going to do is work through that secret. So the secret is, a lot of people, when they do this type of graduation, what they do is they come up like this and they elevate and they cut. Now, this is great because what it's going to do is it's going to leave softness to everything, but it's very hard to understand where the hair is going to fall on the face and if that's where you want it to be. So we can already see from what I was doing, when I elevate, it's going to come up, and as it comes down, it's going to be very broken and actually quite long. So in order to combat this, what we do is we actually kind of fake it with this one. We treat it almost like it's at one length. So we comb the hair down, we don't elevate, we find the long point where it connects, and we work through as a one length. Okay. So what we have now is we actually have two techniques here. We have one which is a graduation in the back, and the other one which is a line technique in the front. Now what we want to do is we don't want to keep it as a line technique. We want it to be graduated. So in order for it to be graduated, we're going to use elevation. So the trick is to not cut the underneath, but to elevate the hair. And can you see that corner? So you see the corner where it doesn't connect. That is the one length, and we have our graduation. So what we're going to do is we're going to be connecting the graduation into the one length. So the front, the very front, stays as a one length, but the back is now being graduated in and connected. So we've worked through a line technique, which means we're very accurate into where we place the line. So we could have gone longer, we could have gone shorter. Because we were doing a one length, it was very easy to decide. As soon as you elevate, it's very hard to decide. So by going down first, cutting a one length, and then elevating afterwards, what it allows you to do is have more control of where you want your line to be placed. I hope that's making sense, guys, because that was a big secret for me. That was a really great technique that I learned to do that helped me really control where my length is in the front. So, you know, we do a lot of like refining nowadays at the end, which is great, but it's not always possible to do that on a client. And sometimes it doesn't always sit as well on a client. So getting the length as close to perfect as possible from when you first cut it is always saving you a little time, hassle, and energy from later. So what we're doing now is we're taking these kind of horseshoe sections, I would say, but what they do is they're cascading down. So they're coming from higher at the front and they're going towards lower in the back. So for those of you that are just tuning in, we're doing an abstract haircut, which means we're doing a triangle graduation on one side, a round graduation on the other. It's all going to blend in the back, but for now, I'm just focusing on doing the triangle graduation. And afterwards, I'm going to connect it with round graduation from the other side.
Can I throw a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Any tip for very flat head shape? How to avoid heavy weight lines and keep graduation silhouette?
Okay, so those are two questions. One of them is about how to make it heavier on a flat head shape.
Yeah.
And the second one is how to get rid of weight lines.
How to avoid heavy weight lines and keep graduation silhouette, yes.
Yes, so for the first question, what you can do is there's a lot of different things you can do to make something fill out more in the back, but it's all about that first section I showed you. So when you do the first section underneath, the more your fingers are away from the head, the heavier the graduation is going to be. the more your fingers are closer to the head, the shorter and the flatter it's going to be. So if they have a flat head, you want to really make sure your fingers are further away when they're vertical and also when they're horizontal. When they're horizontal, the more down and the more away you are, the longer it's going to be. But the important thing is to visually look at what you're doing. So you can see, for me a lot, when I cut, I let my fingers rest. And you can see how short it's going to be. So it's very easy to kind of visually look at it. Then, so that's really one thing. The other thing that's going to make your life a bit easier is if you see that you want it heavier, you can tilt the head away from you. The more the head is tilted away from you, the more likely you are to make it heavier. The more the head is upright, the more likely you are to do something flatter. So keeping the head more away from you is going to allow you to have something that's more heavy. The other thing you can do when it comes to weight lines is something what I'm doing now. When we worked from the front to the back. And what I'm doing now is I'm actually going back on myself. And I'm cutting again what I've already cut, but I'm just skimming it. And I'm just working from the back to the front. So we worked one way, from the front to the back, and then we work from the back to the front. What this does is it just grabs all those little weight lines. The other thing you can do is you can cross-check vertically. So when you cut horizontally, what we're really looking at here is a beautiful shape, but it doesn't really show us what the technique looks like, what the graduation looks like. So by coming across vertically and lifting the hair up vertically, what we can do is we can just make sure that that graduation is blending beautifully with no weight in it. And so coming across vertically is going to help you make that graduation smoother. And remember, when you're cross-checking, you can take rather large sections, because what you're doing is you're trying to blend it at the end of the day more than anything. You're trying to take a large amount of hair and make it all flow. And so that's a really, really nice thing, I believe. So remember here, I'm not looking at the shape. I'm not trying to like refine my shape at all right now. I'm just trying to make sure that that lovely graduation is really nice and clean. It's shorter at the bottom, it's longer at the top, and there's no nasty weight in the middle that's going to stop it from flowing. So that's looking really nice. So I think we can start to see this nice little graduation building up now. And we're going to keep doing the same thing. We're going to be working these little sections which run like horseshoe sections that go from higher in the back and end up lower in the front. But remember, for me, I always like to start in the front and work my way back. The reason is, if you over elevate the front, it's going to end up being too short, and your client is going to really notice if it's too short in the front. So I like to always start from the front, so I'm very careful of where my length is. And when I start from the front, I start to work my way towards the back. And at Slate, what we do is we call it walking the dog, and that's when you go from the back to the front again. So it's just the opposite of whatever you've done before. And we say this because obviously if you take your dog for a walk, you're going to want to take it home afterwards. So imagine the front is home. When you walk your way to the back, you walk your way back to the front. George is laughing because his poor dog's been left outside.
I have a question.
Yeah?
What kind of dog is it?
This one is a very well-behaved one. So what we have is we have our last section. And our last section here is we can comb it down. And we're going to work through this last section doing the same thing. If you want, George, maybe we can move a bit to the light. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take a section and we're going to work from the front towards the back. And then one last time, we're going to be walking our way back towards the front. So this is almost the end of the triangle graduation on one side. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little cross check of the last section, and then we're going to move on to our round graduation. So what I want to do here actually is, another little secret is that the more you elevate, the softer things are. Because if you think more elevation is more like layering. Now we're not going to layer this, but we do want to make it softer. So I am going to elevate it higher.
We've got one comment for the dog.
Yeah? Good.
The dog gets a lot of walks.
The dog does get a lot of walks, man. I'm telling you. RSPCA. For those of you that are not English, you probably don't know what that is. But basically, we're not cruelty to animals, guys. We always take our dogs for the walks. So what we're doing now is we're working with quite high elevation. And we're taking sections which work around the head. And we're just checking that from top to bottom, everything blends. That's all we're interested in right now, is that all I see is from the top to the bottom, that we have a nice clean cutting angle. So that graduation is really nice and smooth. So
Tony wants to know, where are you based?
So we're based in London. The academy is in London, so we have the Slate Hair Education Academy. If you want, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can go on our website, slatehair.com. We have a lot of free tutorials. So I think we have about 20 free tutorials on our Slate Hair website, and we're based in London, about 1 minute's walk from Oxford Circus. So I'm Michael Pizzolidis. We have the beautiful George behind the camera. We are from Slate Hair Education, a London-based academy. What we've done for you today is, so far we've done a nice little triangle graduation on this side, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working through this now to create round graduation on the other side. So
when you're ready, I have another question.
Yeah.
What do you think about diagonal sections when you cut graduation from front to back?
So when you cut diagonal sections from front to back, you're basically encouraging things to be round. Remember that sections follow weight and gravity. So if my section's like this, the weight is going to be pushed backwards. If the section's like this, the weight's going to be pushed forward. So as soon as you have diagonal sections, what you're going to see is the weight is going to be pushed back. And so what you're going to get is something shorter in the front, something heavier in the back. That's as a tendency. It's not always like that, but it happens a lot. So what we've done is we've done the first side of our triangle graduation, and now we're actually going to come and do round graduation on this second side. So we've just taken a section which sections from the temple towards the back and then connects where we've done our graduation on the other side. So just to encourage me to continue this, what I'm going to do here is, you can see it comes round to a point, and I'm actually going to continue this round a little bit. So it's going to make it easier for me. So if I move this hair away, okay. So what we can see is that we've continued that line all the way down to the bottom. And what this does is it gives us more flow, okay? So when I'm coming round with my fingers to create this round graduation, I'm not going to stop anywhere. I'm going to continue it and connect it to what I already have on this side. So by allowing the first section to come in, I'm allowing my fingers to follow all the way through to the other hairline.
So I have a question from Zoe. Can you explain the difference between round and triangular?
Yes, of course. That's a great question. So a round graduation, or a round layer, or a round line in Slate language, obviously I can't talk about all the other companies, but just in Slate language, round is anything that sits shorter in the front and ends up longer in the back. So something which we can see comes shorter in the front and ends up longer in the back. That would be round. Shorter in the front, longer in the back. Now, triangle is just the opposite. Triangle is something that sits from shorter in the back and ends up longer in the front. So again, it's the opposite of round. It goes shorter in the back, longer in the front. Triangle, think about it very simply. Shorter in the back, longer in the front. That's it, that's the difference. So what you're going to see today is actually both. You're going to see on this side we've got our lovely little triangle graduation, and now I'm going to show you how we're going to do our round graduation on this side. So we've taken our first section, which is a section just behind the ear. We've taken it horizontal and slightly, very, very slightly diagonal, so very slightly higher in the front, lower in the back. And now we're going to decide our length. And so what you want to look at here is you want to look at the length if you have the other side. And you're going to decide for yourself, suitability-wise, where you want this second side to sit. And I believe that I want this side to be shorter, but not massively shorter. I don't want it to be unbalanced. So I'm going to work for something which sits around the nose. So even though there's asymmetry, there's still a form of balance within the haircut. And that's something that's very personal, but I think we really have to think about it when we do asymmetric looks. We have to think that suitability-wise, is it going to work for that client or not? And that's something you have to determine yourself. And a lot of the time, for me, it's about doing it visually. Literally looking at the client, putting your fingers there and saying, do I think this is going to look nice on the client or not? And you can literally see with yourself whether you like the balance that's working through or not. Cool. So what we've done now is we've cut our first section of the round graduation side, and we're not going to continue up top. We're going to stay down here, and we're going to work our section from this point and start connecting towards the other side. So guys, I know this sectioning is quite a lot, it's quite complicated. It's obviously a very advanced haircut within our series. It's from not the geometric but our abstract, our more advanced salon creative course. And what I'll do is I'll put the head sheet up on our Slate Hair Education Facebook page. So if you follow us on Slate Hair Education's Facebook page, you'll see these head sheets. I'll put them up for you when we're finished. So what I'm doing now is I'm turning my fingers to connect with what I've cut in the front, and it ends up shorter at the corner behind the hairline. So we can see that what it goes is it actually cascades down. So it goes from the length in the front, and we've taken a diagonal section down, and we've connected it towards the back. And so when we comb it, we just want to see that there's a nice bit of flow, there's no weight there as it's coming through. And as we do this, what we want to do is we want to continue pivoting from this point. So it actually stays at this point and it pivots its way up as we work. And we're going to keep pivoting until we see the same density of hair in the front as in the back. That's when we can start working both sections together. So imagine we've done this first section, and now what we're doing is we're lifting the weight up until it matches this front. I hope that makes sense, guys. Let us know if it's all making sense. Let us know if you're enjoying it. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to be connecting from this point, and what I have to do here is I have to keep an eye on the guide. So the guide is the center bit at the back. If I see my fingers are here, there's no way that they're going to connect to the back. So what I have to really do is make sure my fingers are close enough to the head so that they connect to what I've already cut. So I have a visual guide of when my fingers are coming round that they're going to connect to this point, or they should connect to this point. So the one way is to use more elevation. So the more elevation you use, the shorter things get. And so by having a higher elevation, you're more likely to connect it to what you've already cut on the other side. Cool, so this section, this next section, is the last section I'm going to do before I start incorporating the front in as well. And what we really want to see here is that we're connected in the back.
What makes you decide that this is the last section?
So, because we have the same density from the front to the back. So I'll show you now what I mean. So remember here, your fingers have to be moving around the head. If your fingers are not moving around the head, you're not going to create the shape you want. So because we're working diagonally, it's more on the horizontal. We can see that our fingers are what's creating the shape for us. So the fingers create the shape, and the elevation creates the weight of the graduation, how heavy or flat it's going to be. Okay, so now, why have I done this as the last section? Because if I look, the density of this section, how much hair I have here and here, they match. And so now what I can do is I can actually work this all as one section. So I'm still putting on the milkshake leave-in conditioner, and I'm just working through each section as a primer. So now what I can do is I can work through this as one hit, one section. Now I absolutely love this, because what this does is it gives me flow. It gives me this beautiful, beautiful flow within the haircut. And that's what round haircuts are all about. They're about having flow. And so, because this comes across as one section, my fingers can work very, very cleanly and easily all the way across without stopping. And we can actually see the section has this beautiful rounded section to it, and all my fingers have to do is follow that. Now, the thing is, you just have to think how high you're lifting the hair. Now, I don't want this to be too heavy, so I'm using a fair bit of elevation, just because I don't want this to be too heavy. And we can see that it's blending with the other side. So that's looking great. And we're just going to keep doing this. So we've got probably about 2 sections left here before we start working this into the next section, or the next zone as we like to call it. So again, just deciding how much elevation you want, depending on whether you want it flatter or heavier. So the higher you elevate, so the higher you lift the hair up, the more flat it's going to be. The lower you bring the hair, the heavier it's going to be. But it's your fingers, as they work around the head, that are now creating this lovely rounded shape.
So have from Darlene, what brand scissors are you using?
So these are called Yasaka. Yasaka are a lovely Japanese brand. They're very well priced. These ones cost 160 euro. I'm not too sure what that is in dollars. If anyone knows, they can drop a comment. So 160 euro. They're really nice, very simple, very sturdy. So they're not good for pointing. They're not good for slicing, they're not good for chopping, but they're really good for blunt cutting. So I normally use these as kind of like a foundation in terms of I'm going to create my basic shape with these, my basic haircut, and then when I go for like detailing and softening, I'll then switch scissors. But for now, what I do is I use these. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lovely little recap. I'm Michael Pizzolidis, we have George Achilleos behind the camera. We're doing a variation of an asymmetric bob, which has triangular graduation on one side, and then a nice little bit of round graduation on the other side. The way we've done this is we work through our triangular graduation first. So we worked through a section where we pivoted from the middle and worked our way into horizontal, and then working our way horizontally all the way through the first side. So all the way up, we worked horizontally, creating this lovely little triangular graduation on this side. Once we had finished the triangular graduation, we worked through the second side to create our round graduation. And the way we did this was we took sections which curved around the head, and we worked with our fingers all the way around, connecting it to what we had done on the first side. So coming from the opposite of what we did on the other side. Instead of coming shorter in the back, longer in the front, triangular, we did this one round where we came shorter in the front towards longer in the back. What we want to do now is we want to connect one of our second to last sections, which is a section which comes from the recession area and connects to the back. Now for me it's very important that this haircut is disconnected in the front but connected and blended in the back. And the secret to doing this is using the first side, the triangular graduation, as your guideline. So working your way from the front, combing all the way to the other side, and actually connecting it to the first side. So we can see here that we've actually got hair that we've already cut. So we can see that there's hair already cut. That's from the first side that we've already finished. And we're looking for that to connect. So again, deciding how much elevation you want. I'm using quite a lot of elevation because I really don't want this to be flat, heavy. I want this to be flat. So I'm using a fair amount of elevation so that I can create a more flatter graduation, and it's going to have a more flatter silhouette throughout because I'm lifting it much higher.
So we have from Cindy, great educator, thank you. From Julie Button, you explain everything so clearly, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. That means the absolute world to me. You know, I think everyone's gone through so much this year and last year, and just those kind of comments really make everything worthwhile. So really appreciate it, guys. And again, you know, just thank you so much to everyone who is tuning in. And if you are enjoying it, please help us out and give it a like, give it a share. We really appreciate it so much. And you know, all the team tries so hard to deliver amazing education. So big love to George and all the team for helping us. So we're just continuing around the round graduation now. And again, they come from higher and they end up lower. So if we see it comes from high, goes all the way lower. And what our fingers do is they mirror the section. So as the fingers come up high, as the section goes down, the fingers go down as well. All right? So
and the body together.
And the body as well. So we're going high. And
we have Vasilis from Greece.
Hi Vasilis.
Joining, Vasilis Karamesios.
Hi Vasili. We miss everyone in Greece. Big love to our Greek family. So as we work through, as you can see here, a section ends up going lower. And when you do this, you want your fingers to mirror the section. So as the section goes lower, so does your fingers end up going lower too. So that's just how they blend it. And what I want to do now is a very quick cross check. So I'm going to come across and just make sure that the graduation is blending from both sides.
When do you decide when you are going to start cross-checking?
So when I've got enough hair, because the problem is if you cross-check every 2 sections, what's going to happen is maybe every 2 sections is not going to connect to each other. Do you see what I mean? So actually having a larger amount to check means that you've checked it once and the whole thing blends. So rather than checking a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here, what I'm doing is I'm taking one very large vertical section and I'm checking all the way from the top to the bottom. So that way I know that everything blends from the top all the way to the bottom and I actually don't have to check it again. And I think that is, you know, a beautiful thing to be able to go through, check once and not check again. And you can see, for those of you that were tuning in from the beginning, I'm just walking the dog again. I'm going from the bottom to the top. So your section should come from the top of the section all the way to the bottom. Like a good story, you know, you should have a very defined and clear beginning and end. And so we go from the top to the bottom. That way, when I come across, I'm just looking for everything to blend beautifully.
To answer the question of Tony, I'm from Cyprus.
Oh, nice one, Tony. It's not a very Cypriot name, is it, Tony? Nice.
I am. She asked where I am from.
Oh, yeah, George's accent. Yeah, sorry, Tony. Beautiful. So all the way from top to bottom. And this is the last one. Now these tiny details make all the difference actually. This kind of very, very subtle cross-check from top to bottom is what makes everything flow so much better on this side. And already we can start to see the difference. So we're going to continue doing the same thing till we run out of hair. We're going to be working from higher to lower, and we're going to be blending. And after this, we're going to be working on the fringe area, which is a really fun part of this haircut as well, is the fringe area. So again, starting in the front, our fingers are what's creating the shape, making sure we have consistent elevation. So if we were lifting it quite high, we should just keep lifting it quite high all the way.
So, question.
Yes.
How to choose when to use finger angle versus elevation?
So finger angle, I'm trying to understand the question now. For me, I try and keep things very simple. If I work horizontally, what I'm doing is the horizontal cutting angle is my shape. Okay? How up or down I lift my fingers is the graduation. Heavier graduation, lighter graduation, round shape. When I turn my fingers like this, what I'm doing is I'm actually working on the graduation straight away. So I'm checking if it's heavy or if it's flat. If I want it flatter, I go with my fingers closer. If I move down, it's heavier. Now it's how much I pull the hair on the base straight out from the head, or how much I over direct the hair. Let's say if I started to pull the hair more forward, leaving more length in the back. So when you're working vertically, it's your over direction that creates the shape, and your cutting angle creates the graduation. When you work horizontally, your cutting angle creates the shape, and your elevation up or down creates the heaviness of the graduation. I hope that makes sense. It does to me, but let me know if not. I can go over everything again for you, no problem. We have some great illustrations. You know, we give these really fantastic lectures. Anyone who's been on one of our classes will know, and they really explain things in a lot more detail. Because, you know, obviously when you have the visual references of lectures and things, it can make things a lot easier. And we have a lot of fun with them as well.
When we'll be able again to have classes?
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, in England, I believe from the 12th of April, we'll be able to open our doors again. So it's very exciting. Very exciting to be back. Cool. So that was the last section. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do one more vertical cross-check because I haven't cross-checked that last bit. And then we'll move on to the top. So I'm starting with a little triangle around the top of the head. And I'm going all the way down. So I'm pivoting round the back of the head. Now I don't want to cross-check what I've already checked, so I'm quite conscious where I'm starting my cross-check from. I'm not going all the way from the bottom like I did the first time, because I don't want to check what I've already checked, because then I'm going to be here for 7 hours, and so are you, and so is the client. So it's important to kind of remember where you've already cross-checked and not check it again. Hence why I'm very clear. When I get to the roundness of the head, I do my first cross-check. When I finish my last section of this round graduation, I do my second cross-check, and that's it. So it's very methodical for me. I know where I am, I know what I've done, and I know what I haven't done. So this is quite an advanced haircut, guys. It's taking two very classic shapes and mixing them in. And what we'll do is we'll give you a little recap before we move on. So I'm from Slate Hair Education, guys. If you want, you can see the head sheets for this on our Facebook page as soon as we're finished as well. What we've done is we've done a round graduation on one side, we've done this lovely longer triangle graduation on the second side. Okay? So we started off by creating this triangular graduation by doing a pivot first at the bottom and then working through horizontally. We work from higher in the back towards longer in the front. all the way around, all the way around. We finished one side. We then worked through the second side, and what we did was created a shorter, rounded graduation feel on this side. We worked from the front, shorter in the front, and we worked towards longer in the back and connecting it to the back. So we connected it to our triangle graduation. And now what we have is we have two different types of graduation: a triangle graduation, a round graduation. Now we're going to incorporate the fringe area and very slightly layer the fringe area so it sits a bit softer and a little bit flatter. Now, if any of you from England have seen Creative Head magazine last month, we had our latest collection in it called Divergence, and this was one of the haircuts, so you can always see what the actual end result looks like on a human if you go on Creative Head or one of our social media platforms, Instagram or Facebook, and then we'll also put the head sheets out for you as well later. So what I've done is I've got a lovely little triangle section in the front, and I'm going to be taking this as a guideline, and I'm going to be going shorter on the long side and longer on the short side. So what this does is it creates some balance. So for those of you that again have maybe been on one of our courses, will know that we talk a lot about balance, symmetry. I used to study art and design, and there's a huge amount to be said about designing a haircut that has balance and symmetry. Now, it's very hard to talk about balance and symmetry when you're doing an asymmetric haircut, but there are things that are going to help create more balance and symmetry when you're doing an asymmetric haircut. So one thing is choosing which side is the short side and which side is the long side. So sometimes, not everyone's faces are balanced. You'll have one eye that's higher and one eye that's lower. If you have one eye that's higher and one eye that's lower, and you do the haircut like that as well, it's going to completely put them off. But if you have eyes like that and you go the other way with your asymmetry, it might balance the face. So what I'm trying to say is actually just picking which side is the long side, depending on how unbalanced the face is already, will help you get something which ends as a more visually balanced haircut. Does that make sense what I've said, guys? If it does, give us a thumbs up, give us a like and a thumbs up in the comments. Let us know. We really appreciate it. So continuing our section across, and what we're doing is we're bringing it into our original section. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be layering this.
Question.
Yes.
Bueno, lost it. What do you think about triangular in the back, around on the front, same side of the head? Something like diamond shape.
Yeah, it can be nice. I think the whole point is what does your client want out of it, and also, you know, how badly is it going to grow out. So diamond shapes where they're very heavy around the ears can be nice. The only problem is they don't really grow out very nicely. So your client's going to end up having something that's going to look quite bulky very quickly. Now, as long as you explain that to your client with a little disclaimer, then I think it's fine. The problem is when you don't explain that fully to clients, sometimes they'll have something to say afterwards. So I think anything can go as long as you explain to your clients what the result is going to be like. Cool. So what we've done is we've done the front now, but what I want to do is I want to actually start layering this front area just a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm coming from the crown, I'm coming from where the growth pattern is, and I'm just going to slim this front area so it's a little bit softer. It's a little bit easier to deal with.
So can you show the name of your Facebook again page?
Yeah, it's Slate Hair Education. Slate Hair Education. And our website is slatehair.com. That's slatehair.com. And we have about 20 free hair education videos on there. And they're catalogued so you can really see what you want to on there. So we have lots of different types of haircuts on there for you to watch. So I'm literally coming over the top and I'm just slimming it a bit so it's a bit softer for me, because I know we're going to refine this fringe area and I want to make sure that it's not too bulky when I do.
So the fringe section starts from the crown?
It starts from the crown towards the front hairline. So remember, this is disconnected and long. So we're not cutting the long triangle graduation. We're just cutting this fringe area, and if the angle was like this, we're just slimming it down a little bit. Just slimming it down a little bit. And this is just going to help everything sit a little bit softer, a little bit flatter. And what we can do is we can work around the head as well. So the more we push forwards, the more we're going to be saving the length in the back, which is what we want. We don't want to start changing the haircut. Okay, so that's really nice. I think that's looking really good. The only thing I really want to do now is one last little cross check over the back, and then we're good. So I'm going to pop in a little bit more product. If you want to come over this side, George. So I'm just going to use the Incredible Milk 12 Effects, and it's going to help me start to get the hair ready for when I want to blow dry as well. And we're going to come through the centre back, and we're just going to be refining the centre back. So we just want to make sure that the back is nice and balanced. There's no funny bits of weight coming across, because remember, this haircut, the front is disconnected, the front is unbalanced, it's asymmetric, but the secret to this being super sweet is when the back is nice and blended across. So we're just taking horizontal sections and just making sure from left to right everything blends.
So I have questions.
Yes.
Is this tutorial being recorded?
Yes, it is being recorded, and it will be available on Hairbrained and on our website Slate Hair and on our Facebook page Slate Hair Education.
Okay, then, will you cut this shape on a curly hair?
Yeah, you can. I think the only thing is, curly hair jumps very differently, especially on the front hairline. So the only thing you have to be a bit careful of is, don't make it look like an accident. You know, sometimes if you do asymmetric looks on curly hair, if there's not enough of a difference, it can kind of look like you just didn't cut it right, like you just made a mistake. So what I would do is I would actually really be quite careful of how much length I'm leaving, and always leave a little bit more, because you can always cut it off at the end. Especially with curly hair, you can freehand it if you like. So I think that's my only thing, is I would probably be a little bit more careful when I did it. Cool, it's looking good. I'm going to put in a little bit of some smoothing cream, again from Milkshake.
And the next question is,
yes,
are these products available in the US?
Yeah, they are. So if you go on Milkshake Hair USA, you'll find that they have distributors, I think, all over the US and Canada. So you can find Milkshake in the US. Cool. So we're just popping on a little bit of that product just to help us get through the blow dry. All right. So this is the bit where we make a lot of noise, so you guys do have to bear with me, and I do apologize for a lot of noise, but we're going to get there. Once I've finished the blow dry, I'm going to refine these outlines, and then I'm going to be able to give you another recap before we end. So what I want to do is I want to start towards the front.
So what brush are you using?
So this is a vest brush. You can buy them on Hairbrained. So if you go to Hairbrained Pro, hairbrained.me, you can buy these on Hairbrained Facebook page. So if you see the link above you that says Hairbrained, click on it and you can buy these brushes.
So, what do you think about the rule to make 45 degrees difference between left and right front side length on a symmetric shape?
I think it's whatever you think looks good. You know, I'm not going to start dictating because it's different for every person. Everyone's face is different. So you can't give one answer for everyone. Because everyone's unique, everyone has different features and different face shapes, so I think you have to really decide yourself what looks best.
So do you wrap dry everyone?
No, it depends. I mean, personally, I would have actually liked to leave this a little bit more curly and messy and a liberal free, but I think it's nice to show you how I refine the outlines. So something a bit smooth is going to allow me to really show you guys how I define my outlines better.
So are you taking bookings?
Yeah, so what we'll do is, so we're taking bookings in our London Academy, and we're taking bookings for international travel, but only where they allow us to travel to under current regulations. So if anyone wants to, they can just drop us a little email or a DM on Facebook, Instagram, anything they like, and we can help them out with bookings. Cool, so that's one side that I've smoothed a bit. Now what I'm going to do is work through my fringe area and then work through the other side and just smooth it a bit more. Okay. So, before I spray the outlines and finish it off, what I want to do is just come through and do one last major cross check from top to bottom. So, where I can kind of feel like there might be a bit of weight, what I'm doing is I'm taking vertical sections and I'm actually cutting it blunt, but I'm elevating as I cut. And what this does is it's really slimming it. So anyone who's kind of like seen the old school sassoon, they used to do this a lot horizontally, but I like to do it vertically, and it just smooths and blends everything really beautiful. If we come a bit more here maybe, George, people can see that it just starts to blend this area much better. So when we talk about weight, normally I very much visually look at it. I look and I see where the weight is coming from, and then I try and think. So if I look at it and I say, oh, the weight's from here, it's from this area. And so that's what I'm looking to slim and remove now.
You said about old sassoon, and I just had a comment. Before you said old school sassoon loves slate.
Thank you, Dennis. How you doing, brother? So Dennis runs Old School Sassoon, great educator, great cutter, really lovely guy. So thank you very much, Dennis. If you guys aren't following Old School Sassoon, check it out. There we go. So that's looking much better in my opinion. It blends nicely. Now I'm going to come and do the same thing on the other side. And what this does is it just softens that weight over the top of the head. And always helps everything blend. So you can see I'm pivoting from the crown area, and that just makes everything blend from the middle down.
So, got a few questions.
Yeah, I love questions.
What do you think about flat, natural Bristol brush finish after wrapping?
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for the hair. Sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. So like, for me, I'm not a huge fan of irons, flat irons, but if it needs it, the hair, then I use it. So I think it really depends on you and what you like and what the hair needs more importantly than anything. Cool, so I'm going to give it just a touch of spray now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the medium hold hairspray from Milkshake, and I'm going to use this to start defining the outlines of my haircut. So I would not do this on a human, but on a doll, you really kind of have to have something in there that's going to help hold it in place a bit. So I start from the top and I work my way around the hairline. So the top of the hairline, what I mean is working around the crown area towards the front. And then I go from the mid-lengths. And then after I finish the mid-lengths, I'll work my way back towards the outlines.
How much is a cut and finish in your salon with you?
It's £90, English pounds. I know it's too cheap, I should raise my prices.
We have a crisis now, so no. It wouldn't be a good idea.
No, so to be honest, I don't do too much in the salon these days. So I have my old clients that I've been doing for 10 years, and that's about it. So my clients are kind of like my family. And I think that's the nice thing when you've been doing it for so long. The relationship with your clients is very different from when you first start, because they really start to become a part of your life. You watch them grow up, they watch you grow up together. So I think that's a very nice part of being a hairdresser, is having that relationship over many years with your clients. Cool, so I'm going to pop in just a little clip just to keep that flat in the way while I'm working through my outlines. Cool.
Zoe says, you should. I would pay $200 US.
Oh, bless. Thank you so much, Zoe. So, when you find a client that's letting you do this haircut, you know you've hit the jackpot anyway. So, what we have is we have triangle graduation on one side, round graduation on the other. We're going to be refining this outline now just to make it a bit smoother, and then we are done. So I'll do a little recap after that. So what I'm going to first think about is actually what I'm going to create here. What do I want to see? What do I not want to see? How's it looking to me? If I want to cut it blunt, if I want to cut it soft. And these are all personal choices now. You know, I wouldn't want to tell anyone that there's a right or a wrong way of doing anything. So when it comes to outlines, it's really about your personal taste and what you want to see. So I'm going to start on this side and I'm going to work my way towards the back. So just holding the scissors nice and flat to the head, and I'm just working my way around. So again, there's no specific way that these have to sit, you know, it's very much a personal choice right now of what you're trying to do.
I think you should cut your hair. It's in the middle of the camera.
In the middle of the camera, sorry. I promise, guys, next Hairbrain Live, I will get a haircut as soon as I can find a good hairdresser.
A slick back hairstyle, I think.
So anyone watching out there who wants to give me a haircut, just write a little comment below. So what I want to do is, before I continue refining so much, I'm going to start working on the second side now. So I'm going to work through from the center, and I'm going to work through to the other side.
First one is Marianna Nicolits.
Ah, nice one. So you can see I cut a lot of it very blunt with my scissors. I don't point into it a lot. I always find that you get a cleaner line when you use the blunts, but it's much harder to do things that are going to end up having a bit more curvature to them.
Too many volunteers actually right now.
That's good.
Let's put it into an auction.
Wow. Does that many people think I need a haircut? That's always a good answer. Thanks, guys. Alright, beautiful.
Then he said, sorry, but he laughed too, but my fingers are too crooked now.
Love it.
So, question.
Yes.
Do you use different scissors for dry cut?
Yes, yes. So I have my Cosmos hierarchies for slicing, point cutting, dry cutting, and then my little Yasakas for when I want to use blunt cuts. So I have two different scissors, and I have these hierarchies as well, which are kind of in the middle of both of them. This one I can use for blunt and point cutting. So I have one which does a little bit of everything, one which only does slicing and pointing, and one which only does blunt cutting. So depending on what I'm doing, I can really decide what works best for me. Cool. So one problem with these outlines is you can do this all day, and you're still going to want to do a little bit more.
We're gonna run out of battery if you continue.
So let's go back to the other side. Okay, so what I want to do now is something a little bit more interesting here. I'm going to go for something that ends up being a little bit shorter. Yep.
I'm trying to read also. Have you tried the new wing shears yet from Dennis?
You know what? I have to be really honest here. Really, really honest. Probably about 13 years ago, I had the best pair of scissors ever. It was a pair of wings. And I still have them, and they're still probably my best pair of scissors everywhere. But I did buy wings again a few times after that, and they've never been the same. So personally, it's just personally, I don't buy wings anymore, because I used to buy them back in the day, and they were amazing, and I think the quality is not quite what they used to be. So personally now, I prefer Yasaka or hierarchies, but that's personal for me. So that's how I feel, Dennis.
So Lama says, do you sell scissors?
No, we don't sell scissors. We use them, we don't sell them. So, you know, we're not like a lot of educators. We don't sell clips and combs and scissors and all that. We sell education and that's it. So we really focus our time and our energy on creating as best we can the best education for everyone. But Hairbrained sell amazing stuff. So if you are looking for a really good pair of shears, a really good brush, really good combs, Hairbrained is the one for you. They really create a lot of amazing stuff and they get it themselves. So what I mean is they actually fly to Japan and find the best stuff to sell you. Okay, so we're going for a little bit of an interesting number now. It's got a little bit of asymmetry to it, which is always fun. And we're going to just start to come up.
So from Maria Betka, beautiful haircut, Michael, like always.
Thank you, Maria.
I love that. I saved it to watch it when I put kids to bed.
Ah, bless. Okay. Cool, so I'm just going to grab something to start cleaning the face a bit. So just so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So I think this is a great little trick for anyone who cuts dolls, is just get like a little piece of, you know, sponge like you clean the kitchen sink with. Just cut a little piece and it just helps you just wipe everything away. Because obviously when you kind of do these things on dolls, a lot of us tend to use a bit of hairspray. So by just doing this, it really helps clear everything away a bit nicer. So just to keep everything in place. Alright, one last thing and then we're done. Okay, so we're just going to put her straight. There we go. Cool. And I'm just going to slim slightly some areas here. So again, I don't normally do this on a human, but on these dolls, it actually does look great. And there's some things that you just have to accept that are going to be different when you work on dolls and you work on humans. There's always going to be a slight change in what you do.
I've got some amazing comments. Oh my god, this is dope. Beautiful. Stunning cut, precision, perfection, so clean and perfect.
You guys are too kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for great education.
And don't forget, guys, the sectioning pattern for this was a little bit complicated in my opinion. So you can check out the head sheets on our social media at Slate Hair Education Facebook page. So don't forget to check it out. I'm just going to do the same thing here. So again, I wouldn't do this on a human, but on the dolls, it seems to really help slim those hairlines down just a little bit, which makes them look a little bit better.
So Zoe asks, do you offer online programs?
So we do offer webinars, Zoom classes to salons. So if you have a salon in America, or anywhere in the world and you wanted us to give you a class virtually, we do offer through Zoom. So you'll get your lectures, we'll do demonstrations for you, you guys can do hands-on haircuts in your salon, we'll help you check through them and look at your work, we'll answer questions, you know, we can design the courses for what you guys want. So there's a lot of options around, so if you just contact us, we'd be more than happy to kind of find out what would be best for you and help you figure out what you think will benefit you the most. Cool. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Nice. So, I could do this all day, guys, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to say thank you so much to everyone who watched. And what we'll do is I'll give you one last little recap. And then if you didn't tune in from the beginning, I recommend you go back to the beginning and watch it again. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been amazing. I'm Michael Pizzolidis from Slate Hair Education. We have George Achilleos behind the camera. We've done an abstract haircut. What that means is our abstract series is our salon creative look. So it's something that's a bit quirky, but you can still do it in the salon. We have a classic triangle graduation on the one side, which goes very gently into a round graduation on the other side with this cool little asymmetric fringe. So the way we did this was we started off in the back by taking a vertical section, deciding the weight, and then pivoting our fingers across horizontally. After we worked horizontally, we worked all the way towards the front. So we used horizontal sections which came from higher in the back towards longer in the front. We completely finished one side of our triangle graduation. We then worked through the first section, the length we wanted on the short side on our round graduation, and then what we did was we came round and we connected it to our triangle graduation on the other side. So every time we came round, we connected it to our triangle graduation. And remember, the higher you lift your fingers, the flatter it is. So the more lower you have your fingers, the heavier it is. The higher you lay your fingers, the flatter it is. We then came across and connected the front going from long to short, and then we very gently elevated. We still kept a graduated cutting angle, but we softened the front as well, and then we refined the outlines a little bit, something to give this kind of quirky one, where actually the longer fringe is on the short side, the shorter fringe is on the long side, therefore creating a bit of balance and a bit of symmetry within an asymmetric look. I hope you guys like it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can tune in next month for our Hairbrain Live. As always, you can watch lots of other Hairbrain Lives for free on our website, slatehair.com. Thank you. Good night. See you next month, guys. Don't forget to like and share. Bye.